Time stops for no man, and when your time comes, 60 Plus Racing Adventures is the iRacing league for drivers 60 years of age or older. Follow your passions no matter where you are in the journey of life, and that's where 60 Plus Racing Adventures is one of iRacing's greatest and most unique leagues. It's a new season for 60 Plus Racing Adventures, and it's a new car. So the Super Formula Light joins 60 Plus Racing Adventures for their first round of this new season at Road America. Taking a look at that season 32. An unbroken chain of seasons for 60 Plus Racing Adventures, stretching back a heritage across the Pro Mazda, across the Formula 3 car, and now into the Super Formula Light, one of iRacing's newest junior open-wheeler cars. Let's see what kind of racing it can produce for 60 Plus Racing Adventures across their 13-race calendar for this season. It all starts here at Road America for round one, and RaceSpotTV brings you live coverage of it. Then they'll go to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, Silverstone, Sebring, Fuji, and Kota, where we will bring you live RaceSpot coverage from the Circuit of the Americas for round 6, Misano in Italy, Interlagos in Brazil, Suzuka in Japan, Jerez in Spain, Imola in Italy, Nürburgring Grand Prix Circuit in Germany, and then the Hockenheimring. December 4th will be the end of the season, season 32, and we'll see, can the reigning champion, one of the new stars of 60 Plus Racing Adventures, back it up in this new season. As has been tradition for 60 Plus Racing Adventures, it's a 2-race format tonight, and we're qualifying ahead of race 1. We'll also bring you race 2 after this one. Greg Seitz is the reigning champion. That was in the Formula 3 car. What will be different about the Super Formula Light? It's a brand new junior open-wheeler car from Japan. It's got a turbocharged engine. It's got maybe a little more downforce. I was hearing from some of the drivers. It's definitely a different car to drive, even if the lap times are relatively similar. Its place in the open-wheel ladder relatively similar, and the expected performance relatively similar. So Greg Seitz, through the final corner of Road America there, he's going to head up the long front straight, and this is a racing circuit dominated by a few long straights. It's 6.4 kilometers, which makes it 200 meters longer than Bathurst, which is the yardstick I always measure long racetracks by. It is a big lap here at Road America. Greg Seitz pitches into turn number 1. High speed in a car like this, rolling 4th gear through there. Somehow that's turn 2 in the middle there, and he's now down into turn 3. Again, a few of these corners you're really trying to prioritize your run off the corners, because there's another long straight underneath the Sargento Cheese Bridge, heading down towards a big and crucial braking zone at turn 5. It is a new season, and so it's a new look car, but there's also some new look teams out there. I'll bring you more information about that. There's a few championships within this category to think about. The overall championship, of course, super important to the viewers, super important to the drivers, super important to us all, but there's also the teams championship, and some of those who aren't in outright contention for wins every week put some stock in that, trying to be consistent, trying to go racing with their teammates and their friends to try to put together a good haul of points across the season. And there's also the Super 70s Championship for drivers 70 years of age or over. There's quite a few of them, so it's great to know that well, there are some very young kids on iRacing. There's all of them. There's some, even I think up to and past 80-year-olds racing in 60 Plus Racing Adventures. And the passion for competition and motorsport, I think if you've got it, it never leaves you. And there's stories of plenty of these drivers that they were, involved in maybe club racing through the 60s, 70s, way before anyone thought of sim racing as a thing. And now they've brought their passion to iRacing and to 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Greg Seitz is about to complete this lap, and we'll see where the flurry of lap times puts everyone in the order. So for Greg Seitz, it sends him to the top ahead of Greg Garris, Mike McCormick. You can see the timing column flurrying along quickly as the first round of laps come in. Drivers will have 2 laps in this session, and around a big lap like this where you take that 2-minute out lap, your 2-minute first flying lap will take a while for all the drivers to get around and complete their 2 flying laps. I'm going to guess this is Jorge Barreto here, now into the 11th place and starting their second flying lap. And up into 6th gear along the straight track, then we'll pitch down into the braking zone at turn 5 here, which is a really tough one. And then you do want to use a little bit of that curb on the outside to open it up all the way down to 2nd gear, not too much on the outside, I wouldn't think. And then underneath the Corvette bridge, and it's oversteer as the car rises the crest. And lap 1 is the best that Jorge Barreto is going to be able to do, because lap 2 he's pushed the limits just a little further and, well, critically found exactly where that limit is as he stepped over and past it. Here's Steve Carkner. He's one of those drivers who's formed a new team for season 32 with Don Strout. He's now Backdraft Racing Team. So that sounds like maybe they were both firefighters or something. It's an interesting team name. Sure, I see anything particularly firefightery on it. Maybe they installed HVAC equipment in a previous life. But Carkner was in 6th. He just gets bumped down to 7th there as John Morgan and Mike McCormick's second lap times come in. So if this is an improvement for Carkner, those are some drivers that he'll be able to jump. You see that second set of lap times coming in, and Greg Seitz goes ahead of Paul Stump for the pole position as his second lap time comes in. Carkner through the final corner. You don't want to get too much of the grass on the exit there, because then it's an uphill run to the start-finish line. Carkner on his way. You can make passes between that final corner and the timing line there. I've seen it happen many a time before, and for Carkner, he crosses the line, and it looks like he either didn't find an improvement or he didn't find enough. He sits 9th at the moment. Johannes Jorrison here in 18th. Same livery we were used to seeing on the F3 car, now brought across to this Super Formula Light for Gerhardus Jorrison and Anglo-Dutch Racing. So a couple of new teams, but definitely some teams from previous iterations and forms of 60 Plus Racing Adventures staying with us. Jorrison will go to 13th with his lap time. It is a handsome looking grid we have as well. 33 drivers for the start of the new season of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Greg Seitz is at the top at the moment. Previously, Gerhardus Jorrison was in 18th. Well, that's where Ulf Olsen is at the moment. Again, a similar livery that he used to run on the F3 cars come across to the Super Formula Light for Olsen. Car like this, very light. Slick tyres, decent bit of downforce, does not look troubled by the kink at all, but stock cars, other heavier GT cars, maybe it's a little lift to the throttle, it's a hair-raising moment through the kink in high horsepower cars, but not in this one so much. Plenty of grip for corners like that. Around the final corner, but it's to the pit lane he goes. We don't expect drivers to need to pit in either of the 2 races tonight, but Olsen will make himself familiar with it. Doesn't mean no one will use the pit lane if they have some damage or a problem, but it's not going to be a necessity with 2 14-lap races ahead of us to kickstart the new season 32 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Only a small handful of drivers left on track, as almost all of them have come around and completed their 2 flying laps allotted for qualifying. Greg Seitz is getting just a little more warm-up in here, getting acclimatised to the Super Formula Light and to Road America. Barry Hills, I think, is in the same state there as well, having completed his laps, I believe, but doing a little in-lap at the moment. Yeah, flat out in 6th gear, untroubled by the kink by all accounts there. And it's nice weather for it as well. 20 degrees in the air, 30 degrees on the track. Nice long morning shadows as you pass between the trees that add so much character to this racetrack and give it its nickname, America's National Park for Speed. Seitz isn't going to follow Ulf Olsen in taking the pit entry. He's just going to wait for the clock to elapse. That will set the grid for race 1 of 2 for 60 Plus Racing Adventures at Road America. And that man, Greg Seitz, will be leading them from the front row, a front row that he shares with Paul Stump. John Payne and Greg Garris on the second row, and then Mike McCormick, Barry Hills, the other half of Anglo-Dutch Racing with Gerhardus Jorrison, will start out of 6th place. Mike Grandy and John Morgan, 7th and 8th. Super Formula cars looking very nice on the graphic. And there's Steve Karkner and Ragnar Wisloff back racing after a knee operation. Bob Cohen and Donald Strout are 11th and 12th. Don Strout, another driver, returning to 60 Plus Racing Adventures after a little time away. There's Gerhardus Jorrison, part 2 of Anglo-Dutch Racing out of 13th, alongside Jack Turner on that row there. Jorge Barreto and Eugene Clark, 15th and 16th. Steve O'Malley and Ulf Olsen, 17th and 18th. Leif Hellberg and Richard Coulomb, 19th and 20th. And then Franz Josef Stumm and Douglas Beasley, 21st, 22nd. Todd Scholl and Bill Smitham. And you've got Bobby Love and Peter Holstrom, David Bradley and Randy Shoemake, Bruce Poole and Earl Setzer, Richard Varley, JC Hay and Gene Moore with no qualifying times, so I think they will start 32nd, 31st and 33rd at graphic because they didn't have times, didn't have them quite ordered correctly. In the case of no qualifying time, the tiebreaker is iRacing actually, so Richard Varley has that over Gene Moore and JC Hay. Truncated formation lap here at Road America. They form up on the back straight. They work their way up through these final corners. We're looking from the rear of the Porsche pace car, and when it pulls into pit lane, that white, black, grey car, Greg Seitz, will be the leader to send us away for 14 laps. Twice a champion in 60 Plus Racing Adventures in a new Super Formula Lights era, Greg Seitz is on pole position waiting for the green flag to send us racing at Road America. And he goes. We head down towards turn 1, some movement across the track there from Barry Hills. He's had a really good start, great reaction times from him. John Payne also follows along behind Greg Seitz with cold tyres heading to a sweeping turn 1. Greg Seitz leads them through. It's mainly single file for the most part. A little wide from Grandy there in the Haas Racing Tribute livery. He goes down the inside there. And out of turn 3 they go, mostly single file, looking for some action in the back of the pack, underneath the Sargento Cheese Bridge, looking for the speeds to ramp up, the slipstreaming to kick in. John Payne, Paul Stump and others to put some pressure on Greg Seitz for the lead. It's Stump down the inside of John Payne, breaking into turn 3. And the yellow car of John Payne will come out ahead as it's a spin from Paul Stump. He spins off the racing line, I think keeps it out of the wall, but again, challenging to go side by side on cold tyres early in the race. Paul Stump has been stung by that a little bit as Don Strout goes backwards into the wall in the newly formed Backdraft racing car. And he's had some dramas underneath the Corvette bridge. Douglas Beasley also spinning it around, a challenging car to race early on and in some traffic. It means there's a couple positions to be gained for some of the smoother drivers who've not felt the need to get over exuberant in the pressure of the opening lap. And some of those drivers have gained positions. Ragnar Wisloff up 4, Eugene Clark up 5. Clean opening lap can really be to your benefit. Flat out through the kink, looking for some of the racing here. Side by side on the kink on the back straight, heading towards Canada Corner. Mike Grandy gets ahead of Barry Hill, swoops around the outside, gets a little bit of that curbing, a little bit of the grass. Do got to be careful about that. A couple of drivers exploring the limits of the circuit. Your top 3 getting away. Greg Seitz, John Payne, Mike McCormick to complete a lap here. We're looking at Mike Grandy in 4th. He's had a good opening lap. Barry Hills looks like the driver under pressure. in silver and orange here with Ragnar Wisloff, Steve Karkner, John Morgan, Bob Cohen and Gerhardus Jorrison directly in his wheel tracks. It's lap 1 of 14 completed. Here we go side by side in towards turn 1. For a couple of positions, Wisloff is side by side with Barry Hills, still side by side, heading down in towards turn 3, and they make a little bit of contact. Barry Hills comes across, the two of them spear off the circuit and collect Steve Karkner, I think, who goes backwards into the wall, loses his rear wing. There's no rear wing on the car for Barry Hills either. 3 damaged Super Formula Light cars at turn 3. A couple of big winners are the cars behind Gerhardus Jorrison. John Morgan's going to move up a couple more positions. He's down the inside of turn number 5, making a clean move. John Morgan started out of 8th. He goes to 6th. Bob Cohen started out of 11th. He's now up there in 5th. An exciting start to the Super Formula Lights era of 60-plus racing adventures. But a few drivers that were maybe hoping it'd be a little bit cleaner than that. I said no drivers were going to need to use pit lane, but 3 have visited due to the damage on their cars. Barry Hills, Steve Karkner, Donald Strout. Here's a look there at the opening lap. Just a little too much curb on the inside. And here's Donald Strout losing the rear locking as he came over the crest. We saw in qualifying it was a tough corner. And then, oh yeah, some contacts for Beasley as he got squeezed. And here's Wisloff and Barry Hills. Oh, a lot of energy in that collision. Cars jumping up, leaping over each other. Bobby Love out of the carousel. Very unique livery that Bobby's got. I've been to Buc-ee's once, and I had my ID, but my friend didn't, and they wouldn't sell us beer. That's my one Buc-ee's experience, as Beasley, Wisloff, and some others have made their way to pit lane with the damage they've sustained. Again, a great launch for your top 3 in this race, and all the action has been around 4th place, 5th place through the rest of the field. It's been clean and smooth sailing this last lap or so for Greg Seitz, John Payne and Mike McCormick, and so it's back in 5th and 6th place. You've got to look for the action here. John Morgan down the inside of Bob Cohen. Over-under is on the cards here for Cohen, as then back up the hill. He'll strike back underneath the Corvette bridge. He's got the inside. We've seen it's a difficult corner for these cars. They get really loose, really oversteery through that part of the racetrack, coming over the crest as gravity does its thing, and you've got a little bit less grip right at the point that you want to turn in to a blind left-hander. Bob Cohen strikes back. Good racing there, clean racing between himself and John Morgan. It costs them just a little bit of time, and there's a bit of a queue forming back here with Gerhardus Jorrison, Eugene Clark, Jack Turner, Ulf Olsen and Leif Hellberg. Who's been the big winners so far in this race? Well, there's a few drivers who've made 11 positions. Randy Shoemake and Gene Moore are both tied for that honour at the moment. Whereas it's been 8 for Eugene Clark, who's in this train. Could make a few more. Lock up, contact, oh no. Cohen locks up, Gerhardus Jorrison spins, John Morgan gets tangled in some of that. And there's more carnage happening out of Canada corner. Leif Hellberg picks up some damage. Eugene Clark makes contact. One driver locked up, ran wide. Contact was made, the other spun around, and then on the exit a few other cars hit them. So it's on to lap 4 we go with 3 completed. The racing does not stop as we are almost looking for 3 lanes of racing in towards turn 1. Different braking zones and around the outside. Richard Coulomb holds his position. Bill Smitham will look to gain. He's got his nose in front, but he's around the outside of Steve O'Malley. Franz Josef Sturm is in black and green there, and Todd Scholl behind. Well, now it's Bill Smitham in that blue car, second in this train, who is the biggest mover in the race. 16 positions for Bill Smitham from the Carolinas. It's Gerhardus Jorrison's view. Oh, the car car rolls backwards, and then Gerhardus Jorrison rolls over. And Ricky Bobby through the smoke is where a couple of other drivers have managed to gain their positions. Drivers like Bill Smitham, Franz Josef Stumm, Todd Scholl, who we're looking at right now, and then even some of the other drivers who started very back in the field or without a qualifying time, they've managed to stay on the road. You will have gained some positions through all of the action that we have seen. Todd Scholl will be picking up a nice little slipstream here, and yeah, well, the Super Formula Light is not, a Super Formula car, an Indy car, an F2 car. It is no slouch. It's not hanging around here. I'm seeing enter straight speeds for Todd Scholl in the tow. 256 kilometers an hour. 260 for Richard Coulomb. That's GT3 straight line speeds, but I think these cars corner with a little bit more grip, maybe go a little deeper into the braking zones. So quick little racing car, Super Formula Light, now being used for the first time in 60 plus racing adventures. Scholl uses that toe down towards the braking zone of turn 1. Again, carries some good speed, but then doesn't want to be right underneath the rear wing of Todd Scholl, of Franz Josef Stumm, Stummy as they call him, into turn 1. Down to turn 5 with Bill Smitham. He takes that wider entry. We've seen that bump with the curb at the apex can catch you out, as it did on lap 1 for some of our drivers. Oh, a little wide on the exit, bit of dust on the tyres for Smitham as he continues to pursue Richard Coulomb. Jack Turner is the next car for position, so it's a lap down car in there of Don Strout, who's just in front of them. To Canada corner with this group, just a little fake to the inside, make the driver in front cover it a little bit, and they drop back a tiny bit from the cars in front. Richard Coulomb and Bill Smitham, who they were right with. Now, if you were from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, I'm not exactly sure what iRacing club iRacing would put you into, but we got a Midwesterner or two on the grid by the looks of things. Douglas Beasley and Eugene Clark are both Club Michigan. Again, Stumm around the outside of Steve O'Malley. Leads him onto this straight behind the paddock, descending downhill into the braking zone. O'Malley looks to the inside again, not close enough to make a move, so Todd Scholl will probably want to get past O'Malley as well if he's going to stick with Stumm. Oh, Bill Smitham again. He loves to run wide there underneath the Corvette bridge. He's done it again, just kicking up a little bit of dust into the air in front of these drivers behind. I think interesting for me that Greg Seitz has not motored away from John Payne with the race lead. The gap remains still just 1.4 seconds. Greg Seitz 1/10 of a second quicker on the last lap. Right as we cut to it, John Payne runs a little wide out of Canada corner, so while Greg Seitz has qualified on pole in this new era, led us away in this new era of 60 plus racing adventures with the Super Formula Light car, he's not blowing them away. John Payne is running with him to the best of his ability, but maybe pushing a little hard. Paul Stump, we saw him spin on the opening lap. He's trying to come back through the field. He's ahead of Randy Shoemake. Behind them, Jorge Barreto and Bruce Poole. Pareto so close. Into the final corner, straight round the outside he goes. Has he done it a bit too hot? He bounces across the curb, and he spins out into the grass, doesn't hit anything until he tries to flick spin on the grass, and then he does let his left rear tyre greet the ones that are bundled up against the concrete wall. So around the outside, too wide, bouncing across the curb, getting a bit of the grass, and spinning it around at the final corner. Taking a second look at that, just a little bit of grass. Doesn't offer as much grip as the pavement, and I think you'd get points in drifting for that kind of tag. But it's not what he was trying to do. A little bit of traffic for O'Malley and Todd Scholl. But they get past, and Todd Scholl remains close behind Steve O'Malley. Let's look at Earl Setzer running wide at turn 5. And maybe he decides that's enough racing for him. No, he's still out on the track and rolling. In the 20th position, Earl Setzer at the moment. Here's a look at a move heading towards Canada corner. Peter Holstrom is beside Greg Garris. Holstrom's got the inside. Garris with the blue wings goes around the outside and into 14th place. Garris was one of the drivers who qualified very well but lost some time in spots early in the race. He's now trying to make some amends of it, and he's leaving Peter Holstrom and Bruce Poole behind until he runs wide off the final corner, and that position he got, right back it goes, and maybe another one as well. O'Malley and Scholl, and his side-by-side, Bill Smitham. They've gone side-by-side for a couple of corners here with Richard Coulomb and Bill Smitham. Coulomb's ahead, Smitham behind, loses a little bit of time. Franz Josef Sturm now looks for a lane, cuts from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, with O'Malley and Scholl behind. 5 cars racing for position. Another change of lanes. Bill Smitham now looks to the inside of Richard Coulomb at turn 5. Down the inside he goes. Brakes just right. Thought he was going to maybe overrun the corner. He doesn't. Bump over the curb for Steve O'Malley. Now Todd Scholl is in front around the outside. Underneath the bridge he goes, and then cutting back across him. He'd been more confident around the outside, more assertive. Scholl might have taken that position, but he wasn't sure what was going to happen with Steve O'Malley. Didn't want to risk an incident and couldn't make the pass happen. And now O'Malley runs wide. Scholl goes through. Paul Stump around the outside of the carousel. What a ride he's on. He takes another position, and now he's right with that group of battling cars for inside of the top 10. Paul Stump on the charge. Recapping biggest move, it's still Bill Smitham at the moment, as behind him Richard Coulomb goes round the outside of Franz Josef Sturm at Canada corner. They then head back up the hill with Coulomb in front. You navigate the final corner, and then it's sharply uphill again. So highest point of the racetrack would be sort of at the start finish line, and then a little bit of elevation change around the rest of the circuit, and sort of heading downhill towards the kink, where then the back straight runs parallel to the railway line along the valley. But this is up the top of the hill here at the start finish line, starting lap 9 of 14 for race 1 or 2. Greg Garris slowly extending his lead, now out to 2.5 seconds over John Payne. And the action for the drivers of 60 Plus Racing Adventures has been all through the field. 33 drivers or so started this race. 31 are running now. Well, Setzer with some dramas. Looks like the final corner might have made contact with Ragnar Wisloff. We'll take a... Oh! I thought it was going to be somewhere in the middle of the corner, but it's off the exit of the corner. Wisloff's got a better run, and maybe Setzer was kind of shaping like he was going to move out of the way, but perhaps did it too late, or Wisloff wasn't expecting it. Off the exit of the corner, the two touch, and Setzer ends up in the wall. Wisloff appears to have carried on without too much damage there. Fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 56.1 for Greg Seitz. Paul Stump just did a 156.8. That's the driver we look at now. He's had a relatively clean lap here as well. He's trying to come through the field, having qualified very, very well right up the front. His pace in the Super Formula Light car looks good, and he's got a few positions he can still make up with the 5 laps to go. Looks like Sturm and Coulomb are having a great little battle just in front of him, so probably won't be too long till he catches them the way those two are going. Wide of the apex at 3 from Coulomb isn't how he'd normally hope to take that. 156.666 for Paul Stump last lap was his best of the race. And basically the same pace as the leaders Greg Seitz and John Payne as well, so I think look out for Paul Stump in race 2 because he qualified well. His lap times are very good, but that spin going side by side at turn 5 on the opening lap has really robbed him of the opportunity for a podium. And he runs 10th at the moment with a couple of laps left, and the best you could really foresee for Stump is 7th, and that's if he makes clean work quickly of these couple of cars ahead. That's where you'd love Stump's onboard perhaps, because he's shaping for a move. Good run off the carousel, really, really long right-hander. Flat out through the kink, obviously, so winding up through 6th gear to a lot of speed. Slipstream beginning to kick in, and he thought about having a big lunge down the inside. He didn't want to do anything risky. Now we ride from the roll hoop of Paul Stump. Clean lines, opening up the corner with a wide entry, clipping the apex, good exit. 5th gear, and just as he pulls out of the toe, he clicks into 6th gear, side by side with Richard Coulomb. It's a double yellow flash down the pit straight, and Coulomb is going to let him have it. Relatively easy done move there for Stump to go to 9th. Now he's right with Sturm and Smitham. Those drivers go side by side out of turn 3 underneath the cheese bridge. Sturm's going to get ahead. Stump's going to drive himself into a difficult position here, a wedge that could close. Down into 5, looking for an over-under from Stump. A little bit of smoke in the air from some lockups. Smitham having a look underneath the Corvette bridge, nothing happening there. Driver's running a little bit wide, lots of steering lock on, couldn't get to throttle as quickly as he would have liked. Stump's going to have to be very clever with his racecraft here, because it's no longer about how quick is your fastest lap. It's about, can you position your car well to make a move? Can you get a run and jump and leap at trying to attack the driver in front? Stump hangs back a little bit on the way through the carousel. 5th gear through here. Picks up a bit of aero wash, a bit of understeer there. Looked like he could have been heading for the greenery. And then through the kink here, he's just so close underneath the driver in front. Got to pick and choose which way you can go, but the right-hand side's covered by Bill Smitham. Paul Stump goes left-hand side. Gonna have to outbrake his rival into Canada corner. Around the outside we go. Stump into 8th. Sturm into 7th. But how long can he hold on to that now? Stump with a really great run at him towards the final corner. Race leader Greg Seitz has crossed the start-finish line. 3 laps to go in race 1. A new era of 60-plus racing adventures. The line through the final corner wasn't as good for Stump that time as it was when we rode on board with him, and he could come under pressure again from Smitham heading towards turn 1. Smitham is in the tow and he pulls out inside line for the blue car of Smitham. We are going to go side by side through turn 1. Stump will hold on. Three laps to go, 18 kilometres. There's a few drivers ahead of the battles that just haven't crossed my lips for a little while. So Greg Seitz, John Payne, Mike McCormick is your podium at the moment. Still watching at turn 5. Then Mike Grandy, Bob Cohen and Jack Turner. Quiet achievers, I think, in 4th, 5th and 6th. Grandy qualified 7th, now runs 4th. Cohen qualified 11th and has been running quietly in that 5th place since early in the race. Yeah, and Jack Turner in 6th, on for a great result as well, having gained 8 positions from 14th on the grid. And just keeping his head above where all of the battling in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th has been relentless throughout this race. They've been able to run clean laps and stay ahead. So the tow and the slipstream in this Super Formula Light looks really powerful past about 220 kilometers an hour. Not super noticeable at the low speeds, and then right as they get to the speed where they're about to shift into 6th gear, it just seems so strong. Stump's ahead of Sturm in the battle between the two drivers from Dayach Club, the sort of German-speaking section of Europe predominantly. Although I believe that French and Italian-speaking Swiss get lumped into that same club as well. And then German-speaking Italians probably get lumped into Club Italy, so who knows what's going on there. Two laps to go, looking further through the field. Greg Garris, similar story to Paul Stump. Good qualifying, good single lap pace. Some dramas that have cost them some time and delayed them. So having started out of 4th or so, Greg Garris was way down the field, now back to 13th. And you've got your top 19 of 33 drivers who've had a cleanish race. Ragnar Wisloff in 20th, the first of the drivers who've been through pit lane and taken their repair. Leif Hellberg, Eugene Clark, Douglas Beasley, John Morgan, Ulf Olsen, Gerhard Sjoros and Barry Hill, Stephen Carkner, Donald Strout, Richard Varley, Earl Setzer and Bobby Love have also all had to use their spare Super Formula Lights car, so it's not been a clean start to this new season for that group of drivers. That's where the format of 60 Plus Racing Adventures with 2 separate races, your best result counts to the championship, means all of them have a great chance to atone in race number 2 and take everything they've learned from here into that next race. It has its own qualifying as well, so it is a complete clean slate for race number 2. Greg Seitz has started the final lap of the race, 2.3 seconds ahead of John Payne, who's then 7 seconds ahead of Mike McCormick. We ride with Todd Schollers. He looks for a late apex at the final corner, compared to Richard Coulomb, who ran a little wide. This is the speed right here, 220, 230 k's an hour, where they shift into 6th gear. Car starts to really hit that wall of air, but if you get a tow from the car in front, easily worth 5-6 kilometers. We're seeing it work really well at the end of the long straights, on the pit straight, on this straight from turn 3 down to turn 5. Riddle me this, where is there a turn 4 in the middle of it if it's clearly a straight? But many people have said many things about Road America's turn numbering. Relatively simple steering wheel, very similar to the F3 car. I think it's a pretty well spec Bosch Motorsports unit that you can buy. and Cosworth also make a bunch of steering wheels and a simple one for junior cars. Well, Greg Seitz is about to take this race win. He's won in F3 cars in 60-plus racing adventures. The first Super Formula Lights race will also go the way of the defending champion. It's Seitz on top in race 1. John Payne just behind him. How about these battles all the way to the end? Paul Stump down the inside late on Jack Turner to take 6th place away. McCormick's crossed the line for 3rd, and the rest of the field will eventually come through. Long lap here, 6.4 kilometres of Road America will mean it'll take 2 minutes or so for the whole field to come through. Oh, late off-roading from Jack Turner. That's not going to work. Paul Stump will hold on. Jack Turner will lick his wounds somewhat. Franz Josef Stumm's just a little too far back to take anything from him. Scholl crosses the line. Oh, smoke in the air there through the uphill left-hander, way off the road. Front wing damage potentially for David Bradley in the 72. He's lost some positions and he's going nowhere, so Ragnar Wislof's gone through for 19th. A few others will come through as well. Oh, he's hit the wall on the left, he's spun out. Has he had a technical problem or just contact off the wall off of Canada Corner? Barretto finishes race 1. Okay. And no steering. I want to say, yeah, David Bradley had a technical problem. Is that Barretto that he almost clipped? Wow. Yeah, like his monitor went out or a power failure or something. Not a mistake or an oversteer or anything, just laid on. This car just going straight. Everyone's finished, and Greg Seitz, like I say, takes the win from John Payne and Mike McCormick. That's the podium. Mike Grandy, Bob Cohen, Paul Stump, Jack Turner, Franz Josef Stumm, Bill Smitham and Richard Coulomb as the top 10. Fastest lap of the race, a 1:55.795, was on the last lap of the race by Greg Seitz. The next group of cars, great battles around this spot between sort of 9th and 16th. Todd Scholl, Steve O'Malley, Greg Garris, Randy Shoemake, Bruce Poole, Jorge Barretto, Peter Hellstrom, Gene Moore, Ragnar Wisloff, Leif Hellberg. And then Eugene Clark, Douglas Beasley, John Morgan, Ulf Olsen and Gerhardus Jorrison in 25th was the last car on the lead lap. Repairs were required for all of these drivers behind: David Bradley, Barry Hills, Steve Karkner, Donald Strout, Richard Varley, and Earl Setzer, Bobby Love. Retirements: JC Hay didn't start the race, so actually only 32 of them started. There's Greg Seitz. He took the win in the new Super Formula era, and I think we do have our whole podium to chat with as well. I'm always one to go 3rd, 2nd, 1st and work our way up the podium, which means the first driver I'm going to speak to is Mike McCormick. Mike, do you copy?
Yes, how are y'all?
I'm good. Mic check successful. How's the Super Formula Light?
I like it better than F3. That 3 never really, to me, suited my driving style.
Well, you're off to a happy start with the Super Formula Light. I always look to see a little bit of sort of cold tyre drama in some of the opening laps, and you might have gained a position or two from other drivers doing that.
Yeah, Paul's fun. He's been faster than me all week. I wouldn't have beat him probably.
Road America, not a bad track either. It's been given some graphic updates recently, and plenty of scenery to look at when you're not looking at the road braking markers and trying to carry speed through some of those quick corners.
Well, it's one of my favorite tracks. I usually do good here.
Yeah, you certainly have in race number 1. Did your mind wander at all when you've got sort of 7 seconds to the car in front, 7 seconds to the car behind for 10 laps or so?
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
seems like you didn't, after some of the opening part of the race, didn't have a particularly maybe stimulating race.
No, John's been faster than me all week, and definitely Greg. So I was just basically trying to maintain where I was at.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Mike, and best of luck this season.
Thank y'all. Thanks for all y'all do. Enjoy your races.
Mike McCormick finished third. John Payne finished second.
I guess I'm next.
Indeed. Right on. Great powers of deduction, John.
Hey, guys.
Well, how was that? Greg Seitz, just a little bit of pace over you, but on the average, only a tenth or two.
He was probably eating lunch during the race. I don't think I typically am that close to him. I was happy just to be able to see him toward the end, but I was just talking to him in the room, and I got fast lap on that second to last lap, and I was like, if he sees that, he's gonna uncork one, and of course he did see it, and he did uncork one. But yeah, I was happy. It was a good race.
I got to ask everyone the question: how's the Super Formula Light?
Boy, if you'd asked me that a week ago when I first got it and was testing it, I'd say it's a lot easier than the F3, and it is easier to drive, but to wring its neck and get every little bit out of it, it's still not tricky. I mean, it doesn't do crazy stuff on you, but you've got to trust the downforce, and I think the main thing for me is you just get on it so much quicker, mid apex, a little before apex or whatever, because it'll stick. But so I like it.
And did you get to feel the toe at all? My sense from watching the racing was that once you get to that point where you're about to shift fifth gear into sixth gear, it does seem to pick up a stronger toe than the F3 car.
A second to 7/10 back when Mike was behind me, I didn't see it doing much. But if you can get to that 6.5 into that area, yeah, it's got a serious toe. But I didn't get much chance to use any of that because Greg wouldn't slow down.
What about putting a livery on the new car? There's a lot of drivers that have been very familiar with their F3 paint. Some have come across, some are a little bit of a change. What did you go with? What was your thoughts on that?
Yingling's American beer, and
I know what it tastes like.
Yeah, it's my preferred light beer, Yingling Flight, and I just like the script, and I wanted to change it up. And Bob Cohen's with me this year. We're doing a team, and so I painted us some cars, and off we went. I wanted to have something different than the old Shiner livery, but I like beer sponsorship since you can't see it in real life much anymore. But yeah, that's what I went with.
Good result for Bob there. He started 11th, finished 5th, so you guys are off to a flying start.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him yet. Something must have happened. I'll go back and watch y'all's broadcast to see what happened, because he started higher. Well, no, he had a bad qualifying. He messed up his second lap. But, it's just something fun to do. For me, it's fun we go into a practice session and I can tell him, here's where I think you should pick up the pace, or it's just fun coaching a little. I've never done that, and we saw improvement a lot this week. Hopefully he'll get a better result in the second race.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you two get up to with another 14 laps of Road America. Congratulations on second, John.
Thanks, guys.
Well, with John Payne from second, it means there's only one driver left to speak to.
Yep.
It's the reigning champion and now Super Formula Lights race winner, Greg Seitz. Congrats.
Thanks, David. Happy to be here.
Well, we're used to seeing a very aggressive F3 car from you in 60-plus racing adventures. Shift to the Super Formula Light, and you're a little more beige than chrome.
Yeah, we have a guy who paints our liveries, and he hasn't done one yet, so I just went with a standard paint scheme.
Didn't hold you back.
No,
I mean,
no.
lights to flag sort of stuff there, but I think this new car's brought a bit of the field a little closer together in places.
Yeah, especially on this track. There's such long straights and the setups are even. John was really fast. In fact, I had to really push on that last lap because I wanted that extra point for the fastest lap, and I saw that he had set it the lap before, and I was trying to play it fairly safe to not get any incidents, and then I said I got to go for it, and luckily I had a good lap on my last lap. But the whole race he was kind of keeping me honest. Apart from Barry coming out of the pits right in front of me, that lost me my gap. I was a little like, oh no, now John's going to be in my draft the whole way around.
What do you focus on when you've just got your rival a second and a half behind for the handful of laps there? Where do you sort of try to find your edge?
I just keep pushing and try to be consistent. I can take a breather every once in a while because, like I said, I was trying to get that extra point. It makes me not push as hard for the whole race to get 0 incidents. But I should just let that go and keep pushing because it tends to make me a little more conservative. But when I need to, I can kind of dial it up to 11 if necessary.
Road America, long straights, a lot of high speeds. Where are you finding enjoyment around the track with Super Formula Light? Got a favorite corner?
This car just handles the curbs so well. So like turn 6 at the Corvette sign, in the Formula 3, if you got up past that curb on the outside there, it would be a very unsettled ride. This thing just glides over it. So I love the handling of this car. It's much more neutral and much more stable, and you feel like you kind of know where the limits are, and it doesn't want to jump up and bite you too badly.
And 33 drives to kick off the new season. As I always say, more people turn 60 plus every day. So if it's handling like that, you reckon you imagine a lot of them will stick around?
Yeah, it's a fun car to drive, and you can be fast in it. And like I said, it's not so twitchy like the Formula 3. The Formula 3, I think, took a little more to really push it to the edge. And so, as you mentioned earlier, I think this does kind of close up the gap a little bit because the car is a bit more forgiving. But, I do find it to be a really fun car. Some people would consider it a little more boring because it's not moving around as much. But, when you want to push hard, there's always ways to kind of get the car to react and change. But yeah, I just think this car is a really great car.
Sometimes you don't need the car to be thrilling to drive for the racing to be thrilling, and I think if you go back and watch the replay, you'll see there was plenty of that all through the field.
I can imagine. I've been in some official races, and it especially at this track with the draft, the guy behind you, if you make a mistake out in front, it makes it very easy for whoever's chasing you to kind of make up the time. So yeah, I expect we'll see some pretty good racing this season in this car.
When it comes to sort of the car versus racing, I always think about people don't have posters of football boots on their wall. They have posters of footballers. So I think if the racing is good, the car on its own as a standalone doesn't need to be exciting. It's what it does in competition.
Yeah, absolutely, and it definitely it has a decent draft. So it comes up behind the other cars pretty well. I think a little bit better than the Formula 3 car, and so that also will keep the racing close. But yeah, it's like I said, I think it'll make for very competitive racing this season. And definitely congrats to my teammate Mike and John for hanging in there and pushing me.
The team's championship could be very interesting this year. John Payne and Bob Cohen also getting a good result as well. So
yeah,
won't give you too much longer because race 2 is something you're going to have to get ready for. And we'll enjoy watching the racing and what everyone's learnt from their first Super Formula Light 60 Plus Racing Adventures race that they'll carry into race 2.
Yeah, and the second race for me, when I kind of wrap up the first one in good fashion, I can have a little more fun in the second because we only take the best out of the two. So the next race will be a little more fun. I'll probably either qualify a little further back or just kind of like let things settle in before we get off and going too fast. But yeah, hopefully I'll make it a little more exciting up front in this next race.
Don't ruin the surprise. We don't want to lose viewer retention. See you in race 2, Greg. Congrats.
Okay, thanks, David. Bye.
There we go. Spoke to our podium after race 1, and all of them giving very positive feedback about the change of cars, and we'll see what that brings in race number 2. Stay watching RaceSpotTV. We take a little break, but when we come back, qualifying and race 2 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures from Road America. It's a new car, it's a new season. Stick with us for race 2. Now in its 32nd season, it's a new car for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Super Formula Light replaces the F3 car, which replaced the Indy Pro 2000, which replaced the Star Mazda. And the race number 1 was incredibly exciting. It's now time for qualifying to set the grid for race number 2. Find the drivers predominantly on their outlaps at the moment. 1 or 2 may have started their first flying lap. Drivers get 2 timed laps in this session to set the grid for race number 2, for round 1 of season 32 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Here's a look at Jerry Kerr in the 199 at Road America here, approaching the final corner. I dare say that was a touch wide, but of course, Jerry will also get another lap after the one he's about to start. It's a big lap around here at Road America, 6.4 kilometers, even in this very quick open wheeler car. Lap times are approaching 2 minutes. Staying on board with Jerry Kerr for his lap. Good through turn 1. Turn 2 is apparently somewhere in the middle there, and this is turn 3. And it's pretty good there to get up to speed along the straight heading down towards turn 5. Almost hitting the rev limiter up in 6th gear there. And then coming down on the braking zone, 4 downshifts to 2nd gear, back to the power to head uphill underneath the Corvette bridge, over the crest just as you want to brake and turn in. Seen a few drivers lock tyres, other things happen there. A bit of camber to this left-hander if you get right towards where the apex is. 4th gear on the way into the carousel, into 5th gear. Surely it's not completely flat out the whole way through there. It is for the kink, which is the corner they now approach. No worries there at all at speed. Through the forest, track straightens up just as you want to brake into Canada corner, right-hander. Bit wide, looks a little bit of understeer, but it's still on track for Jerry Kerr, that left-hander up the hill. Also not a corner to worry about in this Super Formula Lights car. And a tiny bit wide in the final corner again, but we remain on track. This lap looks like it will count. The timing column moving along on the left-hand side. Steve Karkner up to the top at the moment from Mike McCormick and Ragnar Wisloff. Where will Jerry Kerr go with his first lap? Sends him to 15th between Bill Smitham and Randy Shoemake. But of course he gets another one and he's immediately onto that. John Morgan has no lap time yet in the 177. And it looks like it's because he went off track on his first lap. So this one is going to have to count. For a multiple time Super 70s champion in this league, John Morgan's seen a couple of different cars come and go in his time racing 60 Plus Racing Adventures. I'm listening to the throttle through the carousel. Maybe just a little bit of lift. He held 4th gear a little longer than we saw from the other on board. Trying to get some rotation through a long corner before you drive out of it. Perhaps needs to be a little careful on this lap if the first one didn't count. Again, it's a big field of races, so if you don't set a qualifying time, you'll be starting way deep in the field, beyond the 30s. A couple of other times come through. Greg Seitz goes to the top, Paul Stump goes to 2nd, Barry Hills goes to 3rd, John Payne goes to 6th, John Morgan, no qualifying time yet. He's out the final corner, he's crossing the start-finish line. He goes to 9th, inside of the top 10, not bad. Ragnar Wisloff goes to 2nd. Bob Cohen goes to 11th. That timing column jumping around as the second lap times come in. Jorge Barreto might have ruined it or spoiled his first lap. Randy Shoemaker, all of the road for him. I was on the way into turn 5 where you can sort of get almost to the far side of the curb on the pavement there. Give yourself a very wide run and arc. So Shoemaker's 21st at the moment. I think he's done his 2 laps and this is a cool down lap. The Mike Grandy's still got 1 more lap, and there's a few drivers we haven't seen. Richard Varley, Douglas Beasley and Gene Moore haven't been out on track in qualifying. Shoemaker's first qualifying lap, 157.8, and then his second one, 157.5. That's what counted. 57, 58.5. Put him where he is. Mike Grandy completes his lap and goes 12th. I think that is all the qualifying laps we're going to see. Yeah, Jorge Barreto only got 1, and that put him 11th. So I wonder if a clean race for him might have him inside of the top 10. Again, Richard Varley, Douglas Beasley, Gene Moore might race, but did not qualify. I think that car does look different for Greg Seitz than it did in race 1. All shiny and chrome. Ready to ride Eternal. So our podium finishes from race 1, Greg Seitz, John Payne, Mike McCormick. Well, Greg Seitz has pole at the moment, but Mike McCormick 6th, John Payne 7th on the grid. Some work to do to back up race 1, because some of those other drivers who are maybe going to take some spots away from them. Ragnar Wisloff, Paul Stump, Barry Hill slot their way into 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Let's look at the grid for race 2 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures, new season 32 from Road America. Once again, Greg Seitz. He's now the championship leader after his race 1 win. He'll start race 2 from the pole position as well, alongside Ragnar Wisloff. There's Paul Stump and Barry Hills, Steve Kalkner and Mike McCormick. John Payne, Greg Garris, John Morgan, Donald Strout, Jorge Barreto, Mike Grandy. Bob Cohen, Ulf Olsen, Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorrison, Franz Josef Sturm, Bill Smitham, Eugene Clark, Leif Hellberg, Randy Shoemaker, Jerry Kerr, Bobby Love, David Bradley, who had that weird end to his previous race, Jack Turner, Peter Holstrom, Bruce Poole, Earl Setzer, Robert McDaniel didn't race race 1, he's here in race 2, Richard Varley, Douglas Beasley, Gene Moore. That's the lot. So there's 1 or 2 drivers I think we didn't see race in race 1. Not sure we had Randy Shoemaker. And now we also get Robert McDaniel for race number 2 as well. So a slightly different cast in some places in the field, but it's Greg Seitz on pole once again, 2 races in a row for this first round of 60 Plus Racing Adventures, but new alongside the front row with him. There's Ragnar Wisloff in the purple Team Vikings machine. Truncated formation lap. We're riding from the rear bumper of the Porsche 911 GT3 safety car, and it's about to make a run to pit lane. Greg Seitz and Ragnar Wisloff are the front row. Paul Stump and Barry Hills row 2. Steve Carkner and Mike McCormick row 3, as the long field of Super Formula Lights trails through the final corner up the hill towards the starters stand. We're about to appear in picture as the green flag waves as the Super Formula Lights cars race towards turn 1. We heard that the car's relatively compliant, more so than the F3 car used to be, but the cold tyres are still a challenge for all of our drivers with that short formation lap, rolling start into turn 1. Greg Seitz leads, Paul Stump makes a position on Ragnar Wisloff, Mike McCormick makes a position on Steve Carkner, heading down towards turn 3, single file from the leaders, double file back in the 13th, 14th, 15th positions as Todd Scholl almost gets rear-ended by Gerhardus Jorison or Bill Smitham, whoever it was back there, but now we race side by side to turn 5. Greg Seitz ahead from Ragnar Wisloff alongside Paul Stump. Mike McCormick making some moves. Maybe he can stand on the podium 2 races in a row. Down the inside, big moves from John Payne into turn 5. He picked some spots as well. Now he's up into 4th, and it's Mike McCormick spun around and collected 4, 5 Super Formulas off the road. He's in the middle of the road there now as well. And a couple of drivers might even collect him. I think both of the teammates from Backdraft Racing, Carkner and Strout, are damaged on the outside of turn 5. Catastrophe for Backdraft Racing as Greg Seitz, Ragnar Wisloff and Paul Stump are the top 3 right now, heading through the carousel. John Payne in the 4th. Oh no, off the road for someone in the carousel. And now that's Todd Scholl at the kink, losing his rear wing. Well, I thought maybe we'd get these nerves and jitters out of the road in race number 1, but race number 2 again, a chaotic start, many damaged race cars. It's got Bob Cohen ahead of Bobby Love. Bobby Love ahead of Bob Cohen, ahead of Earl Setzer. My word. So Wisloff in the 2nd, in the toe of the race leader. Heard that sort of around 5/10, 7/10 is where it starts to get really strong. And it's a high-speed racetrack here. Long straight down the front straight. Long straight towards turn 5. Super high speeds out of the carousel through the kink and towards Canada Corner. That seems like it might be the fastest part on the racetrack for these cars because they carry so much speed through the carousel. Flat out through the kink. We'll see that further around the lap on lap number 2 here. Wisloff just 2/10 behind race leader Greg Seitz. Stump in 3rd. So this is a look. McCormick locked up, ran wide, hit the curb, and then got collected. Does he get collected one more time for good measure? That's... Oh, yeah, he just toes. I think he wanted to keep going, but he couldn't go forward, he couldn't go backwards. It's Robert McDaniel. Oh man, he just gets driven into as he slowed up for the incident. Carkner, no front wing. Predictably, not great results from that. Okay, Stum. Whoa! Car did not look planted at all through the carousel. Live picture in the bottom of your screen, super close for the race leaders. Scholl have suspension damage that he didn't know about until he came into the corner. That was a big accident. And then Beasley, he also looked like he might have had damage or something. He was cautious, it was low speed, and it spun on him in the kink. So carnage on lap 1. Lap 2 is now completed. We start lap 3 with Ragnar Wisloff looking for the race lead. A couple of cars filtering out of the pit lane after damage. It's not what Ragnar Wisloff wants to see. It checks up both of your race leaders through turn number 1, but Ragnar Wisloff leads. He cuts across to the left-hand side. John Payne makes progress. He's up to 3rd. Paul Stump was cautious, but Stump's now back to 3rd. Your top 5 are so close. Right here. Race leader Sights will strike back side by side for the race lead. Paul Stump just behind, John Payne just behind them. There's your top four running over the camera. Underneath the Sargento Cheese Bridge on the way downhill towards turn 5, Greg Sights takes the race lead. Some say what goes up must go down, but what goes down must go up. Immediately back up the hill underneath the Corvette Bridge and through towards the Hurry Downs. Greg Sights leads Ragnar Wisloff, who might have to worry about Paul Stump here. In the yellow car there. He's third place, but he's only 6/10 behind the race leader. There's the speed out of the carousel, flat out through this kink. John Payne in fourth position is only 9/10 behind the race leader. 1 second for these 4 cars up front at the moment. Breaking the toe might prove tricky. You're going to need a mistake from your rivals potentially. I've got my eye on the speed as they come out of the final corner. Onto the straight. Stump has a good run. He's tucked right in the best slipstream position. 230 kilometers an hour. 246, 250 for Stump already. That slipstream is crazy as he reaches almost 255 k's an hour side by side. Wisloff almost gets shuffled off the track there. John Payne decides, I won't get into that. They get so close, nearly a collision there as Stump came back across onto the racing line. Millimetres ahead of Ragnar Wisloff. And it's all Greg Sights needed. He's got 1 second now as they battle behind. Wisloff out of the toe. John Payne out of the double slipstream. Stump braking super deep, making a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact there with Ragnar Wisloff. Almost, yep, and then more wheel-to-wheel contact. Stump runs wide. Back on the racetrack behind John Morgan and Barry Hills. Ragnar Wisloff in second from John Payne. It's almost a 2-second lead that Greg Sights has now. Second, third, hit each other. Wisloff runs off the road in the way into the carousel around the outside. This is gutsy from John Payne as he tries to take second place the long way around, and they both make contact. Ragnar Wisloff spins into the wall. He spews pieces everywhere. John Payne goes to second place. Third and fourth falling apart. Ragnar Wisloff with immense damage on his Super Formula light. John Morgan goes to a podium position, third place. He's always sneaky like that. And now he's up into third from Barry Hills in fourth. Paul Stump's back on the road in fifth. Greg Garrison away. Barretto 6th and 7th at the moment. So a clean race start from Barretto's given him some positions. I was wondering if the new driver of Barretto, maybe I was putting too much mayonnaise on his name, but he's Club Iberia, so I'm confident that Jorge's the pronunciation. And I'll wear it if I'm wrong. I'll always take feedback from the 60 plus racers. Looking at John Morgan right now in the third position. Has closed up on John Payne. It's bringing Barry Hills with him. And while your leader now has a almost 3-second race lead, it's close from second almost all the way through to 10th, 11th still here. Is there a chance John Payne has some damage? This is a look gain. Squeeze on the exit of the carousel. Contact between Payne and Wisloff. Spins Wisloff into unprotected concrete. Carousel again. Payne's left Morgan a little bit behind. Barry Hills. It's probably going to get past John Morgan here. On the way to Canada Corner we go. Ulf Olsen looks like he might have got past Bill Smitham there. There's a lot of positions changing hands now inside of the top 10. Garris made a position... Nope, he was battling with Barretto. And he remains battling with Barretto as we hit the final corner. Don't want to run wide off of there. Up the hill. Focus on Morgan at the moment. Fourth place driver gets a good tow, cracks the throttle. So does Paul Stump behind, and they go single file through turn number 1. Out of 3, it's a train of ducklings following John Payne. With how powerful the slipstream appears in this Super Formula Lights car, they're all in the wheel tracks of the number 2 car in the number 2 position. Towards turn 5, here comes Stump. Down the inside, he gains a position. Greg Garris tries to defend Jorge Barretto, who goes over under through turn 5. Garris remains ahead in 6th position here. Ulf Olsen and Bill Smitham, good lap times from those drivers, 8th and 9th. They stay with this group and within touching distance of the podium as well. Just see little flashes of the race leader. 3.5 seconds off the road from second place. But who will hold second place? Barry Hills goes ahead of John Payne into Canada Corner. Picking them up, heading up the hill from there, and now on board from the roll hoop of 4th place Paul Stump. Well, he has a chance now to try to attack John Payne, who pulls out a line. Makes things easy for Paul Stump because now he can pick up the slipstream of Barry Hills, and look at the speed it's going to give him. In 6th gear, Stump crosses 254, 255 k's an hour as he now looks for second place. What a run he got. 2 positions between the final corner and turn number 1. Stump goes to the race lead. Not race lead, second place. My word. No, he's 5 seconds behind the race lead. Greg Seitz is setting the timing alight. John Payne drops another position. John Morgan goes ahead. There could be a tiny bit of damage for Payne. And this sequence of cars, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, go underneath the Corvette overpass. A couple of positions are changed here. Another one could change. Payne breaks early down the hill into the left-hander behind John Morgan. Garris with a different line than most. He swung in from wider and carried a lot of speed out of the carousel. You carry that all the way. It's flat out through the kink. 240 k's an hour. And then the speed ever increasing. Looks like the fastest part of the racetrack might be here into Canada Corner. Yeah, it is. I see 259 kilometers an hour for Greg Garris as he goes past John Payne. So great run, great tow, pulling out of it late at high speed and tickling the speed trap at great pace, almost at the top of 6th gear. Per the shift lights on board, they're using most of 6th gear, so the car's not geared for much more than 260. Might be getting very close to the limiter with a good tow. This is the kind of track that will do that. That or the end of the Kemmel Straight at Spa, or down the mountain at Mount Panorama towards the chase. Garris got close to John Morgan but did not pass. Barry Hills runs a little wide off of turn 3 there with his run onto the straight behind Stump. A good run for John Payne, but no chance to attack. The fastest lap of the race, Greg Seitz. So he's wasting no time. Oh, sorry, no, and then now he's wasted a bit of time because he's only 8/10 ahead of Paul Stump. He's playing with the field a little bit. He's just given them a taste of what his pace is like, and now he wants to have a look at what's happening. Switch of lanes. Payne goes across to the right hand side. Stays ahead. Bill Smitham, who's gotten past Ulf Olsen. So Smitham moving through the field. 10 positions gained for him. Earl Setzer has 12 positions gained, but I don't think he qualified. Earl Setzer did set a qualifying time, so he's gained a lot of positions. Gene Moore has gained 14 positions, but again, I think he might not have qualified. And Bill Smith moves ahead of John Payne. That contact on the right-hand side up front, I don't see any damage on the wing for him. It's a relatively sophisticated-looking front wing. Got a little bit more elements going on than the old F3 car did. Greg Garris has a really good run on John Morgan. Bill Smitham moves behind as well. So good run from Garris to 4th. Paul Stump has the race lead. So I'm not sure what Greg Seitz is doing. Not sure they're sure what Greg Seitz is doing. But after that double overtake on the front straight earlier where Paul Stump went past Greg Garris and Barry Hills, he's now past Greg Seitz. Yeah, this is Greg Seitz, a lion playing with the antelope before he kills, because now he looks to strike back into Canada corner. It's side by side for the race lead with Seitz on the inside. Stump around the outside is going to run a little bit wide but stay on that race lead. It's a bit of slow moving traffic just up the road for them here. There's Don Strout is about to go a lap down. He's heading for pit lane anyway. They'll be side by side again, heading up the straight. It's one lane for Greg Seitz. And then he takes that lane, he goes around the outside, Paul Stump spins, doesn't hit anything, doesn't get collected. He'll get going again in the 5th place. Here comes a few others at speed, mind you. So John Payne and Ulf Olsen also go past Paul Stump. He's in 9th. Greg Seitz is back to the race lead. Barry Hills, Greg Garris got ahead of John Morgan. That was another pass that happened on the way in towards turn 1 before that dramatics for Greg Seitz and Paul Stump. There's been a couple of good moves from Garris in this race. Club New York driver. Barretto ran wide underneath the Corvette bridge. John Payne's passed him. Ulf Olsen is going to think about it as well. Oh, and off the road again for Barretto with Olsen behind. Paul Stump goes through, makes up 2 positions. Not sure all of what happened for Barretto. Here's Barry Hills closing Greg Seitz. With Greg Garris just behind and John Morgan just behind that. Top 4 is pretty close. Lap 10 of 15. 2 races in every round of 60 plus racing adventures, and this is race 2. Greg Garris won race 1. Now he's going to let Barry Hills go. He's going to let Greg Garris go. Can Garris go 2 for 2 here? No, he's going to run out of steam behind Barry Hills, swooping in towards turn 1. Barry Hills' time to lead the race. Another position lost for Jorge Barreto. Timing column changing as a few drivers make their way towards turn 1. Positions change places. For the race lead, Greg Garris has it from Barry Hills, from Greg Seitz. Greg Garris might be just praying that Barry Hills throws up a couple of blocks, because there's only a couple of laps left in this race. Garris could take it. Yeah, and here's Hills. He's throwing those elbows around to keep Greg Seitz behind. It didn't work well for Paul Stump when he tried it, because this is what happened. A bit of a squeeze in towards turn 1 a couple of laps ago cost Paul Stump the race lead. He got back on the racing line, and then there were cars flying through turn 1, and he was lucky to not get hit. Seitz will have the inside into Canada Corner on Barry Hills here. John Morgan has a great run in behind them. They're all a second behind race leading Greg Garris now. Down the inside goes Seitz, so it's Greg's 1 and 2. If my partner Will Chadwick was here, he'd be thinking of sausage rolls, but no, it's not. Greg's with 2 G's. Could go a pastry right now, if I'm honest with you. Starting lap 12, Greg Garris leads. Greg Seitz back in a second. Barry Hills there in third. John Morgan and Bill Smitham go side by side. Bill Smitham started this race in 18th position, and he moves to 4th with this move in towards turn number 1. He's shown great pace in the Super Formula Lights car. Paul Stump and John Payne are then the next 2 cars behind. Ulf Olsen and Jorge Barreto. What a great race those two have had. They've gone back and forth a few times, and then Gerhardus Jorrison completes the top 10 at the moment on lap 12 of 15. Defensive positioning from Smitham here to try to keep that gained 4th place. And you can see your top 5 all in one shot. Sweeping right-hander sends you back downhill, where you can brake pretty late. Get a little bit of the camber of the curb through there, but don't run too wide on the exit. And now I've been watching both races, trying to figure out exactly how they're taking the carousel. If it's a little lift of the throttle to help the car rotate before you slam the throttle down full, shift into 5th gear, carry 5th gear to 6th gear flat out through the kink, high speed in the toe for the straight towards Canada Corner. Great overtaking opportunity for John Morgan behind Bill Smitham. Smitham tries to cover the inside, but there's so much speed for John Morgan. He brakes late around the outside into Canada Corner, but Smitham, blue car, yellow rims, holds on to 4th position. Up the hill through Bill Mitchell Bend, which is the left-hander. The right-hander, the final corner, not sure it's got a name. And then uphill will sap you of some of your speed, help the cars behind, but it's given a great tow to Greg Seitz. He goes to the race lead here on lap 13. Seitz ahead of Garris. Hills in 3rd. John Morgan trying to make a run at Bill Smitham, 4th and 5th. Smitham holds on to 4th. Seitz with the race lead. Garris just a couple of car lengths behind, tidy through turn 3. You go to shift up the gears, and all of a sudden a big speed advantage in the toe, 6 kilometers for Garris. That's faster than walking pace. So you close the gap at a jog with that kind of speed differential. Garris into the race lead from the inside, runs a little wide, a chance for the over-under, not close enough for Greg Seitz. He stays in 2nd position. These two battling now could bring a couple of those other drivers back into position. Barry Hills would love to be back amongst the action. Bill Smitham, we know his clean air pace is super strong. His best lap of the race, a 157.034. Perhaps the third or fourth fastest lap of anyone, bettered only by Barry Hills, Greg Seitz and Greg Garris. And Paul Stump, actually, who could come back into this one. Side by side for the race lead now. Seitz on the inside, Garris on the outside. No chance of an over-under. Seitz leads again. A spin from Bill Smitham out of the final corner costs him some spots. John Morgan, Paul Stump go through. Ulf Olsen goes through. Oh, okay. I'm sure Gerhardus Jorgensen would have enjoyed that. And Eugene Clark, a few others are also going to go through. 2 laps to go. And Bill Smitham's charge from 18th on the grid to 4th ends with him back in 13th now. Paul Stump was leading the race at one point, spun back to 8th or 9th. Now he's back to 4th, ahead of John Morgan, who gets a tow on the way down to turn 5. Stump covers it off and remains in the 4th position. Here's what happened for Bill Smitham. Oh, it's wide on the entry. Too much curb on the inside. And he spins around. He comes to a complete halt on the outside, spins it back to the inside. Can we get Jorgensen's perspective? I wish for it, and it happens. Thank you, director. So Jorgensen comes out of the final corner on the left-hand side of the road, and then, oh yeah, I think that would make me blush. We're about to start the final lap of the race. Greg Seitz is your leader, but Greg Garris is just 0.4 of a second behind in the powerful slipstream that the Super Formula Light car creates. New to 60 plus racing adventures this season, replacing the Formula 3 car. Similar type of junior open wheeler, but producing great racing. It's only a car length between them now through turn 1 with 6.4 kilometers of Road America, the United States National Park of Speed, left to run. A couple of other positions will change hands. Ulf Olsen spins out of turn 1, collects the wall. Not what he needed on the final lap to bring it home cleanly. Garris again half a second back in the tow, gaining speed down to now just 0.4. You can see it on the timing column top left of your screen how close Garris is, bringing the gap down from half a second to 0.3 or so before Seitz is able to outbrake and out-corner through turn number 5 and extend that gap out again. Garris needs to be so close coming off at the carousel if he's going to stand any chance of taking a race win away from Greg Seitz. Barry Hills isn't too far behind there in the Anglo-Dutch Racing car in 3rd position. This is your top 3, and this is what happened for Ulf Olsen. He's trying to have a look down the inside. There's a squeeze, but he gets in too tight, and he spins out, racing Jorge Barreto like he's done almost all race long. Your leaders are going to come out of the carousel through the kink. Seitz is trying to break the toe, I think, here, and he's got 0.7. It's not going to be a mega toe for Garris to bring him back into race-winning contention. Greg Seitz, multiple times a champion, the form driver of 60 plus racing adventures. This new era of 60 plus racing adventures with the Super Formula Light will do nothing to take away from Greg Seitz' dominance that he's shown since he first turned 60 and joined 60 plus racing adventures a couple seasons ago. It's a race 1 win for Greg Seitz. It's a race 2 win for Greg Seitz. Untouched, unmatched. In the Super Formula Light era, the podium completed by Greg Garris and Barry Hills, new podium sitters after race 1. Randy Shoemake's got a fight on his hands with Bill Smitham to round out this race, and they're just behind that Ulf Olsen, who's got damage. He's only got 3 wheels on, does Ulf Olsen. He's trying to limp it around to the finish, and those drivers are going to get past him. I'd have hung back a car length, got a good run. Bill Smitham's too close to Randy Shoemake, and he runs off the road, but they're side by side, heading up the hill. It is a drag race. Come across for the side draft, Bill. Come across for the side draft. Randy Shoemake holds on. Three wheels on the wagon for Ulf Olsen, and he crosses the line, having limped 6 kilometers with 3 wheels. Super Formula Tricycle for Olsen. He finishes 16th. Barry Hills has a bit of a formation with his teammate at the moment, as we have the last couple of cars to finish. This looks like McCormick or Karkner. Could be Karkner. Gene Moore, in fact, apparently. Incredibly patriotic livery, but I think he's wearing an Australian's helmet. Nope, no, it's a patriotic helmet. It's one of the other drivers who's got Jack Doohan's helmet. Soon to be Alpine F1 driver. And Barney can put the checkered flag away after race 2. It's 2 Gregs up front. Seitz and Garris are joined by Barry Hills on the podium. Paul Stump, John Morgan, John Payne, Jorge Barreto, Gerhardus Jorrison, Eugene Clark and Jack Turner as the top 10. So Gerhardus Jorrison and Barry Hills, decent team result for them. Anglo-Dutch Racing in race 2. Leif Hellberg, Bobby Love, Randy Shoemake, Bill Smith and Earl Setzer, Ulf Olsen finishing in 16th, 3 wheels on the wagon. Great performance from him. I believe Ragnar Wisloff told me he's Swedish. And I guess I'll be embarrassed if that's wrong. David Bradley, Jerry Kerr, Bob Cohen and Franz Josef Sturm as the top 20. And then it was Peter Hallstrom, Mike McCormick, Steve Karkner, Gene Moore, last car on the lead lap. We saw him. Bruce Poole, Richard Varley, Donald Strout and Robert McDaniel 1 lap down. Douglas Beasley 7 laps down. Looks like Ragnar Wisloff retired the car. So too did Todd Scholl. A couple of victims of lap 1 and other incidents. And 16 laps down in a 15 lap race for Mike Grandy means he didn't take the start of the race. But a couple of new faces to speak to then after race number 2. One of them, second place, Greg Garris. How you doing, Greg?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, in the battle for Greg's supremacy, Seitz has just 1 up on you, but you held yourself very well. There are a few other drivers with a chance for a podium there that maybe cracked or spun out under the pressure, Stump and others.
Yes,
anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I knew something happened because I suddenly was farther forward than I thought I would be. So I am pleased that I stayed up there and had the pace.
And iRacing has you as a Club New York driver. Is that where you're from, where you find yourself now? What's your story?
Yes, I moved about 1.5 years ago to New York State, central part of the state, and have a job here, and keep practicing.
Big Watkins Glen fan or no?
I love Watkins Glen. I haven't been there yet, but it's only about 45 minutes away, so soon I will get there.
Fantastic. I've got a Genesee can koozie someone got me from there, so that's my one and only connection. I've never been, but I've got a gift from Watkins Glen.
Right. Good.
So pretty exciting race for you. How's the heart rate post 15 laps of that?
Yeah, not bad. A little warm. I had fans going, blowing on me to cool me down a little bit, but yeah, no, it was fine. It was fun racing, really fun.
And how are you finding the Super Formula Light, and what's going to be your goals for this new season? You've been a 60-plus Racing Adventures competitor across multiple cars. I would have said your name a good 100 times at a minimum.
Yeah, I hope to. I like this car. It's different. Some of our folks, it doesn't sound like the previous car, but I like it. I like where it goes. When you turn, it goes, and I've enjoyed racing it.
Congrats on the second. Congratulations on some great battling and some laps led, and best of luck for all of the remaining races of the season 32 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures.
Well, thank you so much.
Greg Garris joining us. We move to the other G, and Greg Seitz is gonna join us again there. Well, we got a good look at the slipstreaming power of the Super Formula Light in that race.
Yeah, it's got pretty good slipstream, definitely. Makes for much more interesting races, I think. But yeah, I backed off a few times just to keep things close and fun.
How about into turn one with Paul Stump there? How'd you see that?
I just looked at that. I think there was a little bit of netcode between us, but I felt like I gave him a fair amount of space there. So yeah, it wasn't like I chopped his nose or anything. That at least that I saw.
Well, you still come away with double chocolates. You're off to the season for a great start. Any goals outside of just keep winning races?
No, that's it. I'm probably going to miss a couple, so I'm going to have to place well in all the races that I am able to do. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's like I said, I really enjoy this car. To me, it's more fun than the Formula 3 was.
Certainly has a couple of visual similarities though. Steering wheel shift lights look similar. Front wing has a similar shape.
Yeah, the tires I think are much wider though, so like I said, it absorbs the curbs just so much better. It really feels like a totally different car. So yeah.
Well, I mean, what more can I say after a race 2 win that I haven't said after a race 1 win, to be honest. So we RaceSpot coverage won't be of every single race going forward, but you better mark the ones that we are in the calendar. And
yeah, I'll try to
make sure you don't miss those.
All right. Well, I enjoy it. I'm going to go check out the broadcast.
Great to chat as always. Best of luck.
All right. Thanks, David.
There you go, Greg Seitz. 2 wins and 2 poles from 2 races in season 32 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Nothing like change, just a little change to keep everything fresh, and the drivers overall seem to have really enjoyed the Super Formula Lights car replacing the F3 car in 60 Plus Racing Adventures. We've spoken to 4 drivers now, all of them I think with good things to say about its raceability, about its compliance. Not to say that both races were especially clean. It still seems challenging on cold tyres, and we did see some contact happen across both races and take some big names out of contention. Speaking of that schedule, that calendar, next week they can all look forward to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps if they're not over slipstreaming at high-speed racetracks just yet, and then Silverstone, and then Sebring, and then Fuji, oh my. And we'll see you on October 16th next for Circuit of the Americas when we bring you coverage. And that's when RaceSpotTV will bring you 60 Plus Racing Adventures once more. Hugo Lewis has been our producer today, bringing us all of the angles, replays, all of that. I've been David Haynes, and congratulations go to double race winner Greg Seitz from Road America in 60 Plus Racing Adventures.